Cole.
I'm Elizabeth.
And today we're going to be talking about me,
His testimony.
my favorite subject. I mean, me, not my testimony. Anyway, I come from a divorced family. And so before that, I was raised in church before they got divorced. I was raised in church. You know, we was the family that went on Sundays and the holidays. But I don't feel that it was practiced in the house. So it didn't really have a hold on my life. At 5, I met a neighbor who there's a significant age gap.
12 to 13 years.
About 12 to 13 years between us. And he became what I consider my best friend for decades. And, well, I guess a decade. And
yeah, it's not a full decade.
And then when I was 7, I accepted Jesus into my heart as my Savior. Not as something I knew why I was doing it, but because I felt it was something that I had to do or that I was supposed to do. And then I look to her because she knows me better than I know myself.
And he got saved at 7, and then by 9, his parents were divorced.
Yeah, so like 9.5, 10, they was getting separated. My memory is like super spotty. I don't remember a lot of stuff like the years before. I remember some stuff but that's not important. We'll talk about that later. And then we'll go to what, middle school?
So in the 3rd grade, or was it 3rd grade?
Yeah, about 3rd grade is.
It's very heartbreaking what he was actually introduced to as a 3rd grader, and I'll let him tell that.
I was just kind of, he was, so as he was experiencing the life at his age as a, 12, 13-year-old is, the stuff that he's exposed to is a lot different than I'm being exposed to. But the stuff that he was exposed to, I was later exposed to by him. And
way sooner than
I needed to be.
Well, you should have never been exposed, but
yeah,
obviously we're exposed to everything these days. And what he should have been exposed to, what people are exposed to at like 13, 15, Cole has been exposed to as a 3rd grader.
Mm-hmm. And it just kind of created, it was just a seed of bad problems and bad habits, I guess.
So as a 3rd grader, he's not going to say it, I'm going to say it. He was exposed to pornography and cigarettes. And in the world we live in, the culture, it says pornography is okay. And the Bible clearly says it's not. And it creates a lot of issues. And pornography destroys any form of love you ever have.
Mm-hmm. And so, continuing with that age gap, we go to when I was in middle school. He was in college. And,
Mm-hmm.
And before then, he had talked about drugs, but he acknowledged that I was too young to be introduced to that. But, so later on, he starts to introduce me to this stuff because I keep pestering him about it because he's doing it. And I admired him when I was little because he was older than me. He was somebody that I looked up to. And so I wanted to be doing what he was doing, And so I kept pestering about it. And finally, one day, he let me try it. And I tried marijuana with him when I was in 7th or 8th grade for the first time.
I think it was 7th. I think it was like the summer before you started 7th grade.
Yeah. And, sporadically from then on till high school. And then in high school it became more consistent. And I picked up a drinking habit a little bit just because I had access to it. I found it, and I seen people deal with their troubles with it before, so I tried. Because while the divorce my family had wasn't exactly the messiest, it wasn't the prettiest either.
Divorce.
No, it's never pretty, but sometimes the families are able to get along.
Yeah.
Mine was not one of those, and And so I tried to cope with my problems on my own instead of asking for help. And fast forward a few more years, I have some bad sexual relationships and create more drug habits and more drinking problems. And I get to my junior year and I'm smoking before school every day, at lunch every day, after school, and then multiple times on the weekend.
And I'm just going to stop him before he gets right there. When he says multiple drugs, you're probably thinking, oh, like, what could he get into, you know? And this is going to hurt because it's very transparent. And I'm the only person that ever knows. I'm the only person that's ever known he's ever divulged these secrets to. He was doing mushrooms, acid, and he kept on saying the typical thing, as long as I don't do needles, like
Yep,
I'm as good as that drug addict. Like I'm better than that drug addict. And then he, if his parents watch this, I'm sure they're going to be heartbroken and cry. Because everybody just always thought, oh,
he's just a pothead.
He's just a pothead. He just does marijuana. It won't ruin his life. He actually ended up doing methamphetamine one time, and that was his rock bottom. And a lot spiraled from there. And so... Yeah,
that happened senior year. So I ended up getting expelled my senior year because I continued the habits I had in my junior year. And I thought I could get away with it because I got away with it my junior year. So senior year comes, continuing the same thing. One day, Mom comes behind me with my sister because we went to the same school. And she gets out to give me a hug. And I just, finished smoking on the way to school. So it smells freshly of dope. And no surprise to her, it does, because that's what just happened. So she, gives me a hug, and I go in. I think I get through one class and then get called up to the front office because she's reported me to the school. And what ends up happening, I end up getting expelled from the school. That's not what she intended, but it is what happened. And I know at the moment it created a lot of hate and resent in my heart towards her and created a lot of problems for a while. But now looking back, I'm thankful that it happened, because if it hadn't, I would have gone through a whole lot worse and more things. But in that time that I ended up graduating early. I finished school my senior year in a matter of months, and graduated December 2017 and started working. And I have family in Indiana, and I went to
family.
I think he's like a great uncle, I guess.
Oh, you're gonna expose who you did it with.
He's a felon anyway. Doesn't matter.
Oh my god.
And I was at the point in my life to where I wanted to try cocaine because it technically didn't involve needles, and that was my ultimate limit. There's no way I'd ever do needles. And so I'm there, smoking like usual, smoking on the way, it doesn't matter. And I get there and I misunderstood. I thought he said coke, but he said crank, and that's meth. And I ended up, it's not funny, but I ended up snorting 2 lines of meth that day. And, once I realized it, I am super, super anti-confrontation, so there's no way I was going to get up and leave. So I just kind of went with it and tried it. And that was intense, to say the least. And that ended. After I got home from that trip, it weighed on me, and it ended up being my rock bottom. And that's not to say that I quit doing drugs after that, because I didn't. I'm pretty sure not even a week later I was dropping acid again, and smoking on the regs, because it's not methamphetamine, but it's no better. And during my time before I got expelled, I had sent out applications to these schools, as like a college prep program, and one of them was Lindsey Wilson College. And I guess they kept my mailing address and sent me about a tryout day. And I got it in the mail, and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst they tell me is that I don't make the team, because I played soccer when I was little, played baseball in middle school, and then I played soccer again in high school, and then I tried out. I ended up making the team, so I got a scholarship. And the only reason I went to that college was to play soccer for 4 more years. And so I moved in. I'm sorry, I got to back up again. And so I get that, and I'm like, man, if I made the team, then I'm going to have to, start working out, get in shape. Because for those who don't know, if you smoke a lot, you can't breathe too well. And so you need to be able to breathe if you're going to run around the field for 90 minutes. And so I started training. So with my infinite wisdom, I decided to switch smoking marijuana all day, every day, to drinking most of the day. And that's what I did for, the summer before?
Yeah.
Like at least 2 months before. And so I go and I meet my roommate. And he's a man of Christ, and he's a good dude. And before I met him, he went to his orientation, met a group of people, made some friends, and they had started a Bible study, like a Bible study group.
Hold up. What's really funny is that was not Cole's original roommate.
Yeah, my roommate got changed 3 times during the summer.
And it always does if you've ever been to college, and unless you link a roommate and you're like, I want this to be my roommate, you're gonna get switched around a lot. And thinking back now, who his roommate could have been, because he met one of them that would have been his roommate, that I think was supposed to be his original roommate, the final one before it went to Colton.
I don't think I ever did.
One of y'all met them. Somebody that's supposed to be y'all's roommate. And they were like, yeah, I'm glad they're not my roommate. Because I remember that conversation. I was like, oh, man. But go ahead.
And I met...
I was saying all that to say, God was in it. Even, Cole wasn't, with them.
Yeah.
God was in it.
And their Bible group, I started going with them because, he's the only friend on campus I have, because we practice together, we sleep 6 feet away from each other. What?
Less than 6 feet, probably.
Yeah, Parrot was a freaking Cracker Jack box, literally made out of cardboard walls. Parrot Projects represent. And so, he's my best friend. We're going to the Bible study groups, and a few weeks, we do them for a few weeks, and there's this one, we finally do it in the girls' dorm because it's their turn to
host.
Even though they weren't Nick was doing the Bible study.
I don't know.
Anyway, and, it's after soccer practice, so I'm tired, I'm drained. Took a shower, put new clothes on, whatever, but I'm slouching in my chair, my eyes are half open, and 5 minutes in, this pretty lady walks in, and that 5 minutes is important because there wasn't a seat left. So somebody had to get up. It wasn't me. Somebody else got up.
It was Tucker Fletcher.
Tucker Fletcher. He's a legend. I love Tucker. And he brought a chair over for her, and because she was about to sit on the floor.
I did sit on the floor. I sat down. They're like, no, you can't sit on the floor. If you've ever met Tucker, he's a true Southern. He's like, no, a lady can't sit on the floor. Get up.
He's almost got more of a Southern accent than you do.
Oh, yeah, continue on with your story.
And so she sits down across from me, and that's important because the summer prior, while I was drinking and smoking, doing whatever I did, I've been trying to rebuild my relationship with Christ. And so I've been praying, God, if you want me to date somebody, if you want me to marry somebody, you're going to have to put them directly in front of me. And selfishly, I asked him to have them do all the effort, put in all the effort and reach out to me. And so we get through the Bible study, sharing glances, me being creeping and staring at her quite a bit.
It was not sharing glances. It was this fool staring me down. And when somebody stares you down, you got to be like, who is this creep? And so I looked up, and then he would shoot his eyes down. And I
didn't want her to see me creeping.
I was like, I can feel you, bro.
But then I'd be looking at this girl's Bible because
Skylar.
I didn't bring my own. I was reading hers, but then I could feel her looking at me, and I didn't want her to think I was with her, so I'd look away. It was a mess. He was a whole mess.
He was not at the Bible study for Jesus that night.
Nope. Afterwards, I'm talking to these people. I get stuck in a conversation, and I can see her out of the corner of my eye waiting, and I want to go over there. Confrontation again. Can't do it. So she leaves, and I'm like, dang, guess that wasn't the one. And then Colton and I are walking back to our dorm room. We open the door, And the second I put my foot on the threshold to our dorm room, I get a Instagram message from that
Not a
woman.
message. A friend
Oh,
request.
no, yeah, friend request, a follower. No, I didn't have no, you just followed me.
Yeah.
And I like some of her pictures. She liked some of mine. And
He likes some of mine back. I like some of his.
messaged her. We
yeah.
hung out all that night. And then the next day was Malvina Farkle Day. Volunteered all day. The only reason I made it was because of God sent a fire truck at 7 o'clock in the morning
To wake him up.
to wake me up because she was talking to her roommate. She told me, if you don't come, I'm not talking to him.
Yep. And I told my roommate that, Bree, and she was like, girl, are you serious? And I was like, yeah,
Dead serious.
it's a test.
And I was
Like,
there.
if he was faithful. And he's like, he texted me, he's like, I'm not coming. And then, like, he's like, a fire truck went off, I'll be there. And then he walked through and he grabbed coffee and he's like,
Got my coffee and my pancakes.
he's like, what are we here for? And
What are we
then
doing?
we painted benches and each other and had fun and
Painted the benches at Phillips.
fell in love.
They still got them benches?
Yeah.
Um,
Fell in love along the way.
yeah. Along the way.
It was definitely like love at first date.
Yeah. Well, that day we learned a lot about each other because it was hot, it was messy, it was sweaty.
You also had a soccer game like that afternoon.
Yeah, but it didn't matter because I started, right bench, baby.
He played 25 minutes in his whole college career.
Yeah, so I went to college to play soccer for 4 years, and I ended up retiring my sophomore year.
And he also went to college with this intent to be a psychology major.
So picking up where we left off, because the camera so rudely shut off, last thing I said, I wanted to make better drugs. And what I mean by that is I want to make better like antidepressants to the point to where people wouldn't be so dependent on them if they were, if they needed them, so that they wouldn't be stuck in that depressive state or the bipolar, with the bipolar disorder and that kind of stuff. And after a few classes and learning how much further education was needed to do what I wanted to do, to be in the laboratory and test on the lab rats. And it was the 4 years of college plus 4 years of mastery school.
Master's school, and then 4 years to get a doctorate.
And then I had to get a doctorate to be able to.
He was going to be in college 12 years. And then he was going to have to study underneath somebody and do all this. And it was going to be like a 15, 20-year process till he could finally live his dream.
That dream is super cool, and we need people to do it. But I barely made it.
It wasn't cool
I
happen.
barely made it through 4 years, I'm going to be real honest. Would you get
And
off of
so,
him?
one thing is one reason why we're just now coming out after all these years and telling this, and why he's waited, because he's 23, turning 24 this year, and it's why'd you wait so long to confide in anybody, tell anybody, why'd you confide in Elizabeth? And why, I'm sure we're gonna get questions, and so we're just gonna address it so the questions don't really come, but they probably still will come.
Terrible.
He, when he met me, was like, I need you to be somebody that I can tell anything to and never judge me for it. Never.
I had strong trust issues, deep-rooted trust issues.
Never use it against me or say I found out that you told somebody. And so I told him from the beginning, I'd be his secret keeper. If you tell me something, I'm going to hold it for you. And I will never tell a soul. And I mean, there's been many of times I could have threw his secret out there and told the world everything and just wrecked his world. But I stayed true to my promise, and I was never going to tell his story and his testimony until he was ready to tell it. And so, I mean, this is the man that's been saved for 5 years and decided
Got baptized earlier this month.
yeah, it's I'm going to
was
get,
the last month?
I think it's, I don't remember. He's I'm going to get baptized. It's February. He's I'm going to get baptized. Because honestly, that's how the devil works. He gets us in this moment of, and my Facebook post talks about it, of shame, of guilt. What are they going to think? You were an alpha leader. You were a summer intern at a church. You went to youth camp. What?
Truth is, it doesn't matter. It's a public display of your faith is what baptism is, but it doesn't matter to anybody except for you and God. It's entirely between the two of you.
But that's how Satan works, is he'll say they'll never understand. They'll never understand past Cole. And the truth is, our pastor said today, God's done forgot it. He cast it as far as the east from the west, and he threw it in the sea of forgetfulness. The problem is that like the devil is
He's
still
the one
present,
that's reminding us.
and he's like, but the shame and the guilt and the dirtiness. And so it's like been an ordeal of like, because I've known the whole time, and he's given bits and pieces of his testimony, and the whole time I was sitting on the edge of my seat, when is he gonna like tell the whole story of how good God is? Because he's about to tell you like how truly good God was, even when he like was not
Like,
holding his hand.
Despite walking with no faith, because there was a point in my life to where I kind of, I wouldn't say I turned and cursed God, but I was extremely upset, and I did turn away from him entirely. I stopped talking to him. I stopped having anything to do with him. I convinced myself I was an atheist at one point, but looking back, I know I wasn't. I was extremely angry and lost, and I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't know how to ask for help. And I was a very proud person, and I didn't like asking for help. And I still have a very thick head and have problems asking for help sometimes. But we're all human, and that's one of my flaws. But in those days, looking back, they're extremely dark, they're cloudy, and despite how dark they were, I know God was in it, because I couldn't tell you how many times I don't remember driving home, or I remember bits and pieces of some nights. Like I can remember picking people up, getting to the house, walking into the house, getting out of my car, but I don't remember driving there. Couldn't tell you what roads we took, what directions were given. I have no idea. There were countless people that were put in danger because of my actions, and I know God was there because nobody got hurt. There was one night where, and I know God's in it because there was one night that cops came to our car, and the cops were gracious enough to, instead of, they could have taken us because we had illegal substance in the car. We weren't driving, we were parked, but I was so high I couldn't tell my dad how to come pick me up. Like I couldn't give him directions. And so the cop talked to him, and he was gracious enough not to put it on either of our records. My friend came and got his car the next day, and that was it. And we dealt with it at home. But I've never had anything on my record except speeding tickets.
Lord, those speeding tickets.
The only car crashes I've had, I was sober. They were fender benders, except for that one in Columbia. I was sober, but I was well past sober that one, and that was their fault. But we'll talk about that later. But nobody got hurt. I never got hurt. I made it home. I made it home every time I ever went out.
And also, he's talking about, making it out, but he'll tell me situations where he went to neighborhoods or people's houses or known drug houses.
I went downtown. A lot of you probably, if the people from Oklahoma are watching this, they don't know about downtown Louisville, but it's a trash heap. And I had friends that lived on the West End, and, the Kentucky people probably will know better, I would hope. But I stayed the night at their houses a couple of times, and it's I don't remember driving down there. Couldn't tell you what house we was at. Couldn't tell you the number, how to get there. I know who I was staying with, but I don't know if they was there. I don't remember.
Yeah. So, and then which we'll talk more about. There was a period in our lives, COVID season, that really he went through a really extreme battle, and it's one of those times I can see his jaw clenching and tears in his eyes, because it was really hard, and that'll be a video that we'll probably cry in, because he's crying right now. But it's also, God was there in college, at the beginning of our relationship, because not that he was about to fail out, but he was
I had stellar grades because of her.
He was not taking his classes seriously. He was getting C's. He was barely going. And I just kept on feeling this edge in my heart. This is who you're supposed to marry, Elizabeth. And I'd prayed to God seriously about my husband just because I was going through a lot. I'd been through a lot. And I kept on feeling this nudging, like, don't give up on him, don't give up on him, don't give up on him. And never once did I'm not going to say I did it perfectly, because there was a time where I did hand him my engagement ring, and I was like, I don't want this anymore. And we'll get into that story because it's going to come out. And I was like, I don't want this anymore with you. And God, like, I got back in my dorm room, and God, like, seriously dealt with me. And he was like, Elizabeth, I called you to be with him. Like, just get back out there. Like, keep on. And that's the thing. Our relationship looks so clean and perfect to some. But it's like, if you get into the nitty gritty and the thing, like, a relationship is work. Like, yeah, there's love in our marriage, but you have to wake up every day and say, I'm going to love this person. I'm going to choose this person. I'm going to fight for this. Because honestly, the world's out there to, like, take it out. And I think, like, back to, like, those moments, and I'm like, that was definitely, like, Satan. Because Satan knows if you're meant for greatness, he'll come in way before you're ever got to your greatness, and he'll try to, like, knock you out.
Try to take you out as a baby.
Yeah, he'll try to take you out as an infant when you got, like, nothing. And that's, like, what he tried to do in our relationship when we were really young. And even in the beginning, I remember, like, he would say things, he would do things. And I was like, God, that is not the things, or the things that my husband would say, or the things my husband would do. Like, what are you talking about? I don't want this. And we weren't even engaged. We were just dating.
Yeah. No, some of that.
Yeah. And so it was really hard. And I think back to that, and I'm like, part of it probably was we were young and we didn't really know how to, like, understand a complex relationship. But we were also, like, Satan was, like, present, and he was like,
he knew what we were destined for.
He's like, I'm going to take him out.
Because she's been destined since she was 3 to become a pastor, and that will happen one day. Whether that's online, whether we build a brick and mortar place, it's going to happen.
Whether we open one up in our living room.
Hey, Brad and Misty did it. And now look.
I know a lot of people that did it.
Yeah, see, it works. It's fine. We'll make it happen.
And
she had that. She's destined for that. And, you know, I turned from psychology. Instead of making that my major, I switched and I took Spanish as an elective just for fun because, you know, Spanish 1, it's easy. I did that in middle school. Cake. So I did it, and it was fun. And I was like, man, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy the language and learning about the culture and everything else. And so I talked to my professor, and I tested out of Spanish 2. So I skipped it, and I made it my minor, and I switched to communication as my major. And at Lindsey Wilson, you have to take Christian beliefs as a requirement because it's a Methodist college. Or it's associated with the Methodist Church.
Yeah, it's associated. They're not a Methodist college. They have, like, a non-denominational pastor, a Methodist pastor, a Baptist. They
Randy Johnson.
Yeah, they have several.
And so after taking some of the classes I had taken, I was already, like, a little under halfway through to an associate's degree in religion. So I was like, what the heck, I'll get 2 pieces of paper. And so I finished out what was required for the religion degree, and then I kept pursuing Spanish. And if they ever make it to where I can get an associate's degree, I'm like 6 hours away.
Yeah.
So in Spanish.
And, like, the thing, like, people don't understand about that is he went for psychology, and it took, like, me sitting down with him and being like, because he's like, I think I'm just going to leave. And he was thinking about transferring. And there was all these questions and doubts and wonders and what ifs. And I sat him down and I was like, let's have a real talk. Like, let's figure out what you want to do. Like, let's see, like, you know, the jobs. Let's pray about it. And he was kind of just like, I don't really, I want to speak Spanish. And that's kind of, I was like, what do you like to do? And he's like, I don't know. And so we looked like degrees and different things. He's like, I like to speak Spanish. That'd be fun. And I had taken comm classes already. And I was like, hey, why don't you do comm? It's a very common degree. And then you can add a second degree on with it. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then he was like, he because it's funny how God works, because I was talking about like a New Testament class with Troy Elmore. He's like, I want to take that. And so he ended up taking it with a different professor, and he ended up taking Old Testament, and then he's like, man, I'm really like enjoying this. And then he took the Gospels with Kurt Lee, the man that married us.
Oh, he's a legend.
And he loved that class. He's like,
Kurt Lee will have his own video. I hope he can like cameo one time.
He was like, I love this. And it kind of just spiraled from there. And then he was like, I want to be a Spanish translator. And he was like, and I'll never forget it. He was talking to my dad, like when he's asking for hand of marriage, because we were at dinner. And I had a feeling I knew like why Cole asked my dad to dinner that night. But I was not exact.
Did I ask him?
Yeah, you're like, hey, y'all want to get dinner? Me and Ellis will be in Bowling Green. Oh. And dad kind of like.
Was it his idea to go bowling?
Yeah, because he was trying to buy time.
Yeah, he was trying to procrastinate.
He was trying to run away from you in the parking lot. But he was talking to my dad, and he was like, I want to go on mission trips and share the gospel, because I'd gone to Honduras and I just fell in love with Honduras, and I really do truly want to go back. Like, no matter how dangerous it is, I never felt dangerous, so I was like, I'm going back head first. And he's like, I want to experience that. And it's just amazing like how God took this, truly, honestly, when I met him, like this broken puppy of a person, because that's what he was. Like, you know, a little puppy that's been abused. Like, I think about Chuck when we first got him. Like, he was abused. He'd always tuck his ears. He'd tuck his tail. He's scared. He made himself small and meek. And that's who he was. And I think about, like, who he's become. And I'm like, you truly did a work in this man's life. Because you took his heart of stone and you gave him a heart of flesh. Like that prayer, I had to pray over him constantly. Lord, take his heart of stone and give him a heart of flesh. And I'm like, wow, because I seen like a full transformation. No, I'm not no troll. Cole, when like he was in like full blown junior year, I didn't know him at his bottom when he was trying methamphetamine, because I would have pimp slapped him.
Pimp slapped him.
Yeah, would have. But I did. I met Cole when he was still just like trying to figure it out, and I just heard this voice, stick with it and pray for it. And I think so many times like we're like, okay, God, I like your plan, but it's not easy, so I'm gonna dip, because I think like this game plan looks better for me. And yeah, and I'm like really glad that neither of us dipped, because I'm sure there were several times both of us were like, she's crazy.
Yeah, Jerry Thomas had a role in that.
In what?
Me dipping. Satan was really trying me that day with Jerry Thomas.
What are you talking about, you dipping?
Public speaking. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I thought you were talking about dipping on our relationship.
Oh, no. I was talking about college.
Yeah. And so there was definitely like throughout the whole experience, which we've probably not done like the best job of explaining like how God was there always. But I feel like we have.
I feel like we've covered more than the surface. And as we talk more, you'll find out.
Yeah,
more.
because like one thing like before we go is he was like on Sundays, he's like, no, we don't go to church. We stay in bed, or we go to Waffle House for Jesus. And I was like, oh no, that won't work. And so I told him, I was like, either you're going to go to church with me every Sunday, because my family's going to be in church, and like we will serve the Lord.
That's one of my favorite scriptures. For me and my house.
For me and my house will serve the Lord. And I said, or I'll break up with you. I was like, you got like snippety snap, get it in shape.
That's the profile picture of this channel.
It's the
first Sunday we went to church together.
Yeah, and he went back, and then he started inviting his family. He's like, hey, if y'all are ever in town, like on Sundays, we're going to church. Like it's popping.
Good old Three Trees.
And yeah, Three Trees in Russell Springs, Kentucky. And I think sometimes like we forget like everything is a little bit of work. And some things are a lot of work.
I'm still a lot of work. I ain't even gonna lie about it.
So I'll let him finish out his story, because this is his video.
I mean, I don't know.
Get any final remarks?
If you got questions, ask them. We'll try and answer them in the next video. But
if you have our numbers, you can text us.
I want to see comments. If I want to be making YouTube videos, I want to see comments on there.
If you don't have our number, comment and we'll read them because somebody wants comments. So, but that's not why we're doing this. So if nobody comments, it's okay. But you got to see that, like, we're people. Obviously, something major has happened in our relationship. And what's funny is we've kept it private for 25 plus months and nobody's known. And they're like, and when they all find out, it's actually going to be like, wait, what? It's going to be kind of sad because we're both probably going to cry.
That's fine.
But God says be transparent. And when he calls you to do something, you got to step out in faith and do it.
Until next time.